When it comes to the H1B1 visa, is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Is it, not quite black and white? Is it a little bit of gray? How does it affect the economy? Does it drive up prices? Does it lower prices eventually for everyone? Is it a net benefit for society? Is it, a net loss for society as a whole? I like to look at the big picture, the full picture, both sides of it, right? And it's not a right or it's wrong. It's a great conversation to have to understand this better. So if you think about the why does it exist? Well, it's to bring in people with skill sets, capabilities that doesn't exist here to benefit corporations, benefit society as a whole, and just to benefit the country, the overall GDP, and that's great. But it does have other effects. So what other effects does it have? Usually when H1B1 visa members come to the United States, and let's just say they work for a Silicon Valley project or company, they usually can pay those H1B1 holders less than they would pay people that live inside of the United States. So that's a very big thing because you're sponsoring a visa for the person and they and their family come over and they're working and, on average, they get paid less than what someone else would be paid that is doing the exact same thing in the United States. So what does that bring to the table? Well, from a labor market standpoint, that's more cost-effective labor that comes in. So Silicon Valley companies, and I'm not just picking on them, other corporations do it too, they benefit from this. So if you look at the political conversation that's happening, with regards to H1B1 visas, you could see that both sides make a pretty good case. They have different, of course, arguments, but the one side, you get the best and the brightest around the world to come in here, which also drives down the labor costs, which makes the companies more profitable, and so forth. So, let's just say the H1B1 visa program disappears. Let's just say we decide as a country, or the elected leaders decide that, we have people here. We have engineers. We have the people that could do the same jobs that these folks do. We have Americans that are not currently employed, that's looking for employment. Let's just cut that program and let's start employing Americans. Well, there's going to be effects on the entire economy because of that. All of a sudden, the lower labor costs are going to start to rise, right? Which then comes into the overall profitability and margins of the companies that are now hiring local people that has the same talents and skill sets and capabilities than the folks that they were getting from overseas. So it's very, very interesting. I mean, all these things have different consequences, whether you're for it or whether you're against it, whether you're for immigration or against immigration. I just think it's interesting to have the conversation, and I have the benefit of looking at it from different angles. Being, an immigrant myself to the United States, I could see arguments for and against, and I could see the benefits of an H1B visa program. And I can also see the negatives, right? As I mentioned, people not having jobs, they're unemployed, but people coming in from overseas and getting employment. And then also, driving down the labor costs, which increases the profitability. But, of course, to what degree does it negatively affect, communities or people in your own country? So it's fascinating. Is there a solution? Is there a happy medium? There probably is. But I think, my philosophy is if you have people that are looking for employment that have the skill sets, capabilities, and talents here, you probably want to put them to work first before you bring people in from overseas. That kind of would be my happy medium of how I look at it.
Well, no, and I appreciate that. What are your thoughts, though? So you mentioned Silicon Valley, which is the epicenter for tech. So do you think that limiting the highly skilled immigrants is going to slow down innovation?
That's the other thing. If there's not the same talent, skill sets, and capabilities that exist here, it could slow down innovation. Mm-hmm. I mean, let's take a look at an example of another fellow South African that came to the United States through Canada, Elon Musk. So there's a very, very talented individual there with skill sets, capabilities, and an incredible vision. He comes to the United States through Canada, and he's in here. I mean, just think of the value that he's created and the innovation that's happened just because of his ideas, and some of them crazy and wild out there, and a couple of years later, not so wild and crazy, right? So yeah, you have that element too, where if there's folks not coming in that have incredible skill sets and talents and are extremely, extremely driven and have unique ideas, yeah, I mean, you could make the argument that innovation could stall a little bit too, because if you think about it, right, the Silicon Valley, let's stay on that because I use that as an example. The best and the brightest minds in the world in tech, they go there. That's where it's all happening. So would you want more or less of the best of the brightest minds in the world going there? I'd make the argument, yeah, you want the best and the brightest there. So again, back to that happy medium thing of where you can meet in the middle. Yeah, if you have people that are incredibly talented, get them there. But if you have folks that can do the jobs current H1B visas already in this country, let them do those jobs.
Well, so in that same vein, do you think that those people that are coming in on the H1B visa, are they actually taking the jobs of others, or are they taking jobs that would otherwise remain unfilled?
And that's where it gets a little bit hairy, because I would look at this and say, well, I'm pretty sure that a Silicon Valley company puts out an ad and has a pretty good look in their own country first before they start looking abroad for people to bring in. I would think if I was running a company, that's probably what I would be doing, right? I'd put an ad out, I would have people interview, and I would have try and find the right fit for the position that I have here first. And if I cannot find it here, I'll open up globally and then find someone in to come globally. But of course, with every single program that any government has, not just the United States, you pick your government around the world, I'm sure there's massive abuses, and I'm sure that there are people seeing, well, we could actually drive down a lot of costs by bringing in a lot more H1B visas. So yeah, I would say that if it's done correctly, it shouldn't take the jobs of people that's already here that can do it. But of course, there's going to be some abuses and some different angles to how people are doing things.
So if we are trying to attract the best and the brightest from around the globe, right, to the United States, do you think that those fees associated with bringing in those best minds could translate down to higher costs for the consumer?
Companies that are going to be penalized for H1B visas. So they would pay in, and penalize meaning they will pay a fee for every person that they bring in. I think that, yeah, that could have an effect on the costs of products and services. Absolutely, because they're going to factor, as a business, you're bringing someone in and you're going to pay them a certain amount, and now you have to pay the government a certain amount, which is kind of like a penalty, I guess, or a fee for the H1 visa. So yeah, it could definitely drive up the prices. The flip side to that, because there's always different ways of looking at it, the flip side to that is that might discourage people to get someone in on an H1B visa, and they would take a harder look of just trying to find someone here and paying them basically close to the market rate, which is I think gonna kind of square it anyway. You might end up paying the same for an employee on an H1B visa than you would for a local one. So it's interesting. In my opinion, there isn't just one way to look at this. You can have a discussion around this, and you have to look at all the different ways and how this could potentially play out.
Well, how do you think U.S. publicly traded tech companies are going to view it?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to be on their income statement. There's going to be a line. It's another expense item that they're going to have to list, right? If they bring in H1B visas, that they're actually going to have to pay this fee or penalty, or however you want to look at it. So they're definitely going to look at that, and they look at expenses. The other factor too that we did not discuss when it comes to the H1B1 visa. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Is it, not quite black and white? Is it a little bit of gray? How does it affect the economy? Does it drive up prices? Does it lower prices eventually for everyone? Is it a net benefit for society? Is it, a net loss for society as a whole? The other thing we have not brought into this is AI. So now we're actually talking about labor and tech, where we use tech as an example. Of course, H1B1 visas are used in many, many different industries, but it's predominant in tech. Yeah, how does that play in? How does AI affect us? We might not be having this conversation, in 12 to 18 months. You'd be like, could you remember all the talk about H1B1 visas and the impact, and the pros and the cons, and, is it good? Is it bad? We might not even be having that because of the impact of AI.
Everything's AI dominant at that point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, my kind of follow-up question to that was, do you see some of these tech firms relocating abroad to avoid the fees associated with the H1B1?
That's another very interesting angle, because a lot of the tech companies, again, staying on tech, they are actually technically headquartered and domiciled in foreign countries already. Ireland being one of them. If you look at Meta, for example, being based out of Ireland. So again, people have not noticed this because we're very, very much focused on other things. But there's been a competition for corporations around the world already. And there's been a competition for citizens. So it's interesting. It's everybody has to make their country and their state a very attractive place for people to want to go to. And if they don't, people are going to leave, and corporations are going to leave.
Well, let's look at the geopolitical kind of consequences of this, whether it's a pro or a con. Let's take a look at India, for example, who is going to be one of the largest recipients of the H1B ones as far as tech talent. How does that relationship look like with the United States then, if it continues to kind of progress this way?
Yeah, it's interesting because India is part of the BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. So there's a lot of economic relations and treaties between that group of countries. So it's interesting, the West, and I would say the United States and Europe, they've always had good relations with India. It's going to be interesting to see how that gets affected. There might be other opportunities within the BRICS for them, right? Let's just say the H1B1 visa fee or penalty that's being paid or going to be paid affects it negatively, and that program kind of slows down. They might find a way to go to other countries that incentivize them going there.
Well, that was going to be the question there. I mean, does it incentivize those countries to go to Canada, for example, or to the UK?
Yep.
And then we're losing top tier talent here in the US.
Yeah. And even, don't throw away the Middle East and Dubai. There's a lot of action in Dubai and a lot of companies and corporations there and startups. So, a lot of them might be going there.
Well, let's say in your best guess, and let's exclude AI right now, because this could be an absolutely irrelevant conversation if AI takes over every one of these jobs anyways. On the short term, how do you think this might affect the U.S. labor market?
Yeah, it all depends how companies are going to react to the fee or the fine that they're going to pay for H1B1 visas. If they decide just to hire local people, then I would say you could start to see costs increasing. If they decide to pay the fines anyway and hire the folks from abroad, that would also increase costs, because I think in most cases, it's probably going to square. It's going to cost you the same as a corporation to hire an H1B1 visa employee than it would be to hire a local person. And then the other effect, impact that I didn't even mention yet is companies might just decide, the H1B1 visa fee isn't worth it, or penalty, so we're not paying that, so we're not doing that. Mm-hmm. And actually, we might just maybe downsize our company anyway and not hire locally. So in that case, you wouldn't see a massive effect on prices. But I would say, yeah, prices are going to go up whether they hire H1B1 employees or local. And if big corporations just decide to downsize, then you might see prices just stay where they're at.
So if you were to put on your first and foremost your business leader hat, and then secondarily your investor hat, what kind of advice would you give to those individuals as far as how to navigate some of this uncertainty?
This will be challenged in court. I'm sure, every decision that comes from this administration down the line ends up in court and challenged. So I don't think this is going to be an exception. So if you're a business leader, you're running a business and so forth, I think this would, this is going to take a while for this whole thing to play out. So initially there'll be some uncertainty, but I think it might be business as usual for a while until this thing works its way through the courts.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. And I definitely agree that anything that this admin is doing right now will certainly be challenged in court. I think that that's an absolute no-brainer. So that being said, I appreciate your time. We're going to go ahead and wrap today, but this is great insight for our viewers to take a look at. If they want to see more videos like this, go ahead and ding that bell below. We always love having MC on here, and we will continue to bring him back here on this channel. And we'll probably have a follow-up with MC if you don't mind rejoining us.
Would love to. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Thank you. Talk soon.